All right, so today we're diving in something, a question that's maybe a little bit out there when you first hear it. Which has a bigger impact on modern culture, Kendrick Lamar's music or McDonald's?
Wow.
And before you think we've lost it, I promise you we're going deeper than just like, who makes a better burger or beat.
Right.
It's about the subtle but powerful ways that both Kendrick and McDonald's shape how we see the world.
Yeah, it really is fascinating when you think about it because on the surface they seem like total opposites.
Totally.
Right. You have Kendrick, this incredible artist who wins a Pulitzer Prize.
Pulitzer Prize winner.
And whose music really grapples with these huge social issues.
Yeah.
And gives a voice to people who often don't have one. And then you have McDonald's, this global fast food giant.
Yeah.
I mean, more than just burgers and fries. They really represent globalization and this idea of like...
Accessibility, right?
Exactly. Accessibility and even cultural homogenization.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so interesting, right? We're not just debating taste. We're talking about forces that influence how we think,
Absolutely.
how we act, and even what we value.
Yes, exactly. It's about the how and the why of their impact. So how does Kendrick's art challenge the status quo? How does McDonald's, with its reach all over the world, shape our everyday life?
Yeah.
And then ultimately, what does that combined influence tell us about where culture is at right now?
So let's start with Kendrick. You might know him for hits like Humbly,
Right.
right? But to really grasp his impact, we need to go beyond the catchy hooks and beats.
Think about his lyrics almost like a modern-day Greek chorus, reflecting and critiquing society.
Right.
Perfect example is The Black or the Berry. He doesn't shy away from the realities of being black in America, the anger, the pain.
It's raw.
Yes, it's raw, and it forces you to confront things you might otherwise want to ignore.
It's like he's holding up this mirror, making us see the cracks in what we think is the American dream.
Exactly, and he's doing this all within hip-hop, a genre that's often criticized for being materialistic or escapist.
Yeah.
Kendrick turns that on its head. He uses his platform to spark conversations about race identity and social justice.
And the fact that he won a Pulitzer for Damn, it's just mind-blowing.
I know.
It's a win for hip-hop, but it's bigger than that. It shows how art can be recognized for its intellectual and social importance.
Absolutely. It shows that Kendrick's message resonates beyond America. His themes of struggle, resilience, and hope connect with people all over the world.
Yeah, okay, so Kendrick's impact is undeniable. But now, let's switch gears to McDonald's. I bet most of you have a McDonald's memory, whether it's a Happy Meal birthday party as a kid, or, let's be real, that late-night McMuffin run
Oh, yeah.
after one too many.
I think we've all been there.
And that's what makes McDonald's so fascinating. Culturally, it's woven into our lives. It's almost inescapable. Think about it. They're in over 100 countries, one of the world's largest employers, impacting economies, jobs, even farming.
It's true. McDonald's eyes globalization in action. This spread of ideas and, yes, chicken nuggets around the world.
Exactly, and it's often called the democratization of dining.
Right, because McDonald's made eating out affordable to everyone.
Yeah.
It changed social habits, created new places to hang out, and arguably standardized the dining experience in a way we hadn't seen before.
And you can't forget the marketing, those golden arches, instantly recognizable anywhere.
Absolutely.
What do they even symbolize?
Americana.
Consumerism, the allure of convenience.
Right, that's the question, and it leads to the bigger point of this whole discussion. How do you measure cultural impact when you're dealing with two things that are so different?
Yeah, it's tough. You have
lose.
Kendrick sparking deep thought,
Yes.
challenging norms, but maybe for a specific audience. And then you have McDonald's reaching billions,
Yeah.
but maybe on a more surface level.
It's this idea of depth versus breadth of impact.
I like that.
Right. Kendrick might spark profound change, but in a focus group, while McDonald's reaches everyone. But its impact might be less about challenging you and more about reflecting what society already is like, especially around consumerism.
So Kendrick pushes us to think critically, to question things.
Yes.
While McDonald's, intentionally or not, often reinforces those existing structures.
That raises a fascinating question. What really shapes culture more? The forces that challenge us or the ones that just give us what we want?
It's complicated, right? It's this mix of individual expression, how society is structured, and the choices we make as consumers.
Exactly. And we haven't even talked about the time element
Right.
Kendrick is very much a voice of right now.
Yeah.
Capturing what people are feeling and hoping for at this moment in time.
Okay.
But McDonald's has been around forever, shaping our world for decades.
For generations, yeah.
It makes you wonder how their legacies will change. Will Kendrick's message still resonate as new generations face their own problems? Will McDonald's adapt, or will its influence fade?
These are all questions we're going to keep unpacking as we go deeper into this.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the critiques, because even these seemingly unstoppable forces have their weaknesses.
Oh, for sure. Let's start with Kendrick.
Blah.
While his work is praised for its complexity and depth, there's a question of accessibility.
Yeah.
His music can be dense, with wordplay and references that not everyone gets.
Right. And then there's the reality of the music industry itself. It's a business.
Of course.
Even artists like Kendrick, who have a lot of creative control, are still subject to commercial pressures and what's popular.
Oh, absolutely.
Which can change so fast.
Yes. And shifting gears to McDonald's, well, the criticisms are well known. Health concerns, environmental impact, the homogenization of local cultures. These are all major issues.
But it's interesting, though, even those criticisms show how cultural values are changing, right?
Right.
We're demanding more from corporations like McDonald's, holding them accountable for things like ethical sorting, their environmental footprint, even the nutritional value of their food.
It shows a growing awareness that our choices are all connected.
Yeah.
We're starting to understand that what we eat, what we buy, even what we listen to, has an impact beyond just ourselves.
It's like McDonald's is having to adapt to this changing cultural awareness.
Yeah.
Whether it's through healthier choices or sustainability initiatives.
Right. And this highlights a really interesting tension. Is McDonald's just giving us what we want, catering to those desires for convenience and affordability? Or are they shaping those desires because they're everywhere and their marketing is so powerful?
It's kind of a chicken or the egg thing.
It is.
Right. And it applies to Kendrick, too. Is he tapping into this wave of social awareness that's already there?
Yeah.
Or is he, through his art, sparking those conversations and driving that change?
Cultural critics have been debating this forever.
Yeah.
And it's probably a combination of both a dynamic back and forth between artists and the societies they live in.
It's like this constant push and pull between what individuals express and the forces that shape our collective experience.
Exactly. And understanding that dynamic is key to really grasping how complex modern culture is.
Yeah.
And how figures like Kendrick Lamar and, yes, even McDonald's contribute to it.
Okay, we've covered a lot here.
We have.
We've talked about the nuances, the impacts, the criticisms even. But stepping back, what's the big takeaway for our listeners?
I think the most important thing is that culture isn't a monolith.
Right.
It's not a case of one force winning and another losing.
Yeah.
It's dynamic and always changing, a tapestry woven from so many threads.
So no winner today. No cultural impact trophy.
I'm afraid not, because both Kendrick Lamar and McDonald's, in their own unique ways, show us who we are as a society.
Kendrick challenges us to face uncomfortable truths, to strive for something better.
And McDonald's, whether we like it or not, reflects our habits, our desires, our global interconnectedness.
They both tell a story about us, our values.
Our contradictions, yes.
Yeah, and the real question we should all be asking is, what role do we play in shaping that story?
Right? Are we just passive consumers, letting the forces around us dictate our taste and how we see the world?
Or are we active participants, really engaging with the art we consume, the brands we support, the systems we live in?
Because at the end of the day, the impact of both Kendrick and McDonald's is only as powerful as the meaning we give it, both individually and as a society.
That's a powerful thought to leave our listeners with
It is.
as we wrap up this part of our exploration.
And that's where this whole discussion gets really interesting, because it's not just about how big or popular something is, it's about meaning.
Right.
It's about how these two totally different things, an artist and a fast food chain, shape the stories we tell ourselves about the world.
It's like they're working on different levels with different systems of meaning. Kendrick's challenging the narratives around race, identity, social justice, and McDonald's, in a way, embodies those narratives, especially when it comes to consumerism and globalization.
It really is a paradox.
It is.
You have Kendrick critiquing the systems that perpetuate inequality.
Yeah.
And then McDonald's arguably profiting from those same systems.
And yet they're both so deeply ingrained in our culture.
Right.
You can't deny the influence of Kendrick's lyrics on music and social discourse today. And you can't escape those golden arches no matter where you are in the world.
It speaks to this idea of cultural hegemony, the way dominant ideologies are reinforced through our everyday experiences and the things we consume.
So are we saying that McDonald's is inherently bad? Are they the bad guys in this cultural narrative?
I wouldn't say that it's not that simple.
Okay.
It's more about recognizing how cultural products, even something as seemingly harmless as a Big Mac, can carry these implicit meanings and reinforce certain power structures.
So they're a reflection of the society. We've built a society that values consumption and convenience. And Kendrick's art is pushing us to question that, to imagine something different.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the tension between what we want, what we consume, and what we truly value.
And how those tensions play out in our daily lives, shaping who we are and how we see the world.
Precisely, it's this interplay between individual choices and societal forces.
So how do we even navigate this complex cultural landscape? How do we engage critically with these forces without being completely overwhelmed by how big they are?
I think it starts with awareness.
And
Being aware of how cultural products from music to fast food shape our perceptions and influence our behavior.
yeah,
It's about being conscious consumers, questioning the messages we're constantly bombarded with, and seeking out different perspectives.
so we have a responsibility to actively participate in the cultural conversation,
Yes.
to engage with the art that challenges us, the brands we choose, and the systems we live in.
And to understand that those choices have a ripple effect.
They do.
They shape not just our individual experiences, but the collective narrative we're creating as a society.
So where do we go from here? How do we reconcile these seemingly opposing forces, these different systems of meaning?
I don't think it's necessarily about reconciliation, but about recognizing that culture is dynamic and always changing. It's about embracing those tensions, the contradictions, the ongoing dialogue between creators, consumers, and the systems that shape our world.
So it's about recognizing that both Kendrick and McDonald's, in their own way, are reflections of who we are, where we've been, and where we might be going.
And ultimately, the power to shape that narrative, to define what culture means and represents, lies within each of us.
That's a powerful thought to leave our listeners with as we move into the final part of our exploration. So we've looked at these two cultural giants, Kendrick Lamar and McDonald's, and how they shape our world in such different ways. But is there a way to bridge that gap, to find where art and commerce, critique and consumption can actually coexist?
That's a great question, and I think it starts with understanding that culture itself is complex.
Okay.
It's not just good versus bad or highbrow versus lowbrow. It's this dynamic mix of influences, a constantly evolving conversation between creators, consumers, and the systems we live in.
So maybe it's not about forcing them into categories, but understanding how they work in their own spheres of influence.
Exactly. Kendrick's art is all about symbolic expression,
Okay.
using music, language, performance to challenge us, provoke thought, and inspire change.
Yeah.
McDonald's is about material culture, providing a product, a service that meets certain needs and desires.
But those realms do intersect, right?
Of course.
Kendrick's music is consumed, it's commodified, it exists in the same capitalist system as McDonald's.
Absolutely, and that's where the tension is. Even art, even social critique, is subject to the forces of production and consumption.
Yeah.
Kendrick's albums are sold, his concerts are ticketed, his image is licensed. He's participating in the system he's critiquing.
It's like he's pushing back from within, using the system's own tools to get his message out there.
Precisely, and it's in that tension, that negotiation between artistic expression and commercial reality that we see how complex culture really is.
So where does that leave us as consumers? Are we part of the problem when we engage with these cultural products?
It's not about guilt, it's about being a conscious consumer. It's about recognizing the power dynamics, understanding the messages within these products, and making informed choices.
Being aware of the stories we're buying into, both literally and figuratively.
Exactly, and realizing those stories shape not only our own experiences, but the collective narrative we're building as a society.
So what does this mean for the future of culture? Are we stuck in this cycle of critique and consumption?
I don't think so. I think we can evolve as consumers become more aware, more discerning. Their choices will shape the cultural landscape.
Yeah.
Artists like Kendrick will keep pushing boundaries, challenging norms, and corporations like McDonald's will have to adapt to those changing values.
It's like a cultural ecosystem.
Yeah.
Everything influencing everything else.
Exactly, and we all participate in it whether I realize it or not.
This has been a really thought-provoking conversation. I have to say it's made me look at my own choices as a consumer differently.
That's what these deep dives are all about.
Yeah.
They help us step outside our usual ways of thinking, to challenge our assumptions and engage with the world in a deeper, more meaningful way.
So to wrap things up, I want to leave our listeners with that the next time you encounter art that moves you or a product that you want, take a moment to think about the stories they're telling, the systems they represent, and the impact they have on the world.
Because culture is not a passive thing, it's an active conversation, and we all have a voice in shaping where it goes.
And on that note, we'll bring this deep dive to a close. Thank you for joining us on this journey. And remember, keep questioning, keep engaging, and keep shaping the culture you want to see in the world.